Okay, picture this. It's a tense Friday afternoon. A trader is staring intently at her screen. She's short a cash secured put, and she's just rolled it for the 6th time. Bought back her expiring contract and sold a new one a bit further out. The stock wobbled a little, so she rolled down and out, collected a credit, and did it again. And again. The position is perfectly green. And the next roll right in front of her, it's beautifully clean. A real net credit, a strike she completely likes, and more time on the clock. Literally every single number on her screen is screaming, "Do it, do the roll." But then, out of nowhere, this voice in her head pops up. It's some arbitrary rule she picked up from a trading book or maybe a mentor or just some half-remembered piece of trading desk wisdom. And it says, "Hey, you've rolled this 6 times. That is the absolute limit. Close it. Take the assignment. Move on." So, what does she do? She closes a perfectly good position, she crosses a fresh spread, she pays the extra commissions, and she rebuilds her market exposure entirely from scratch. And she doesn't do this because the next trade is mathematically or strategically better. No, she does it simply because a counter told her that this specific trade had used up its allowance.
Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to completely demystify one of Wall Street's most pervasive and honestly arbitrary rules, the strict roll limit for cash-secured puts and covered calls. We're pulling directly from a really fascinating strategy guide by Sam Vishwas. We want to break down exactly why counting your rolls might just be the exact wrong way to manage your short options, and how we can rethink this whole shebang together.
Section 1. Inside the institutional cage. Why Wall Street stops at 6.
So let's pull back the curtain for a second on where this famous rule actually comes from. The whole cap your rolls at 4 to 6 thing, it absolutely lives on professional trading desks for very real, very tangible reasons. But as we discover reading through this guide, it exists for constraints that have absolutely nothing to do with whether the next roll is actually a good economic decision. It acts as a stand-in for a completely different set of problems. Look, a fund operates under a strict mandate, right? Its prospectus authorizes a very specific kind of exposure. If a manager rolls a short put far enough, it quietly morphs into a longer-dated position than anyone signed off on. So the cap just acts as a fence around the paperwork. Then you've got investors and auditors. A position rolled deep underwater shows a really ugly quarterly mark, and managers cap rolls to force that loss into the daylight rather than trying to hide it. Third, there's portfolio margin. This actively punishes aging positions, eating up capital as it deteriorates. And finally, you have the attention budget. A professional desk might have, 4,000 aging chains and just way too few people to examine them all by hand? A hard number, like 6, is a forcing function. It drags scarce senior attention to the trades that actually need a second look. Judgment just doesn't scale at the institutional level, but a counter definitely does.
Moving on to Section 2, the retail advantage. You are not a fund. Think about it. The reality is, literally none of those institutional constraints apply to an individual managing their own book. You don't have a prospectus to breach. You don't have limited partners breathing down your neck reading your quarterly marks. If your puts are genuinely cash secured, the capital charge does not creep up as the position ages. The cash is just the cash. And you are already the human in the loop. You don't need a counter to force you to look at your own positions because looking at your positions is your entire job. As the source material points out, the cap was built to solve 4 specific problems that the individual retail trader simply does not have. Inheriting this rule anyway, it's exactly like installing a massive industrial smoke detector built for a commercial kitchen inside a house that doesn't even have a stove. It is excellent engineering for a completely different environment. Isn't that just a crazy accurate way to look at it?
Section 3, the one deciding question, stripping away the machinery.
So the crucial point is this. If an arbitrary number shouldn't end a trade, what exactly should? Well, we have to strip away all of that clumsy institutional machinery. When we do that, we're left with a merit-based framework that perfectly replaces the roll counter. It all boils down to this single golden rule. You need to look at your trade and ask yourself, would I open this exact position fresh today? Look at the exact same underlying asset, the exact same strike price, the exact same delta, the exact same implied volatility. If you were sitting on cash right now, in this very moment, would you actively choose to put this specific trade on? The answer to that question reveals the true reality of your trade. If the answer is yes, then rolling and starting fresh are economically the exact same trade, except rolling is cheaper. You don't cross a new spread, you pay no extra commissions, and the same capital goes to work. Rolling simply gets you the trade without paying the toll twice. But if the answer is no, then the roll is a hidden loss that you are just refusing to look at. It is wearing the costume of a good trade. You might point to the credit collected or the extra time, but that's measured against being stuck in a position you wouldn't choose clean. If your rolled trade is earning 8% a year, while fresh trades available to you average 15%, it fails the test. Plain and simple, no matter how many times you've rolled it.
All right, section 4, the real red flags. What actually says stop? Now, removing the institutional cap is absolutely not a license to just roll forever. It's actually the exact reverse. It is a strict demand to judge every single roll by its actual trade-level merit. Here are the 4 genuine stop signals that tell you a trade's trajectory is failing. First up, the credit is drying up. If each roll brings in less, from $1.80 down to 90 cents, then 30, then a dime, you aren't harvesting premium anymore, right? You're just rolling for free to avoid a loss. Second, the strike is walking away from you. Rolling a put down on a falling stock might net a tiny credit, but you're locking in a fat loss to buy back the old put. That is just catching a falling knife with a smile on your face. Third, time is getting expensive. If you have to go 90 days out to scrape together what 30 days used to pay, your decay per day is completely collapsing. And fourth, one position is eating the book. A roll can be flawless on its own, but if defending one ticker has quietly grown to consume 25% of your buying power, a great trade has just become a terrible portfolio. You see, a rigid roll counter would blindly wave a crashing trade right through these red flags if it was only on, say, roll 3.
Finally, Section 5, Smarter Investing. Discipline without the cage. And remember, this day one conviction, it applies to covered calls just as much as puts. Let the actual merit of the trade make the final call, not a blind tally. This all builds into a really cohesive system. The author of this strategy guide, Sam Vishwas, actually envisions a framework specifically so that individual investors can have the systematic, rigorous discipline of an institutional desk, but without inheriting the restrictive cage that the desk actually lives in. This engine is built to evaluate every single roll, for puts and calls alike, not by asking how many times you've been here, but by asking whether you would objectively choose to be here right now.
So, what does this all mean? The whole argument distills down to one simple sentence. Match the rule to your own constraints, not to someone else's. It is time to stop counting and start evaluating trades based on their actual merit. If you want to explore this merit-based approach further and trade with true day one conviction, you have got to check out OTSUllu.com. That is spelled OTSULLU.com. By the way, Ullu references the Hindi word for owl, which is a great symbol for wisdom-driven investing. So I'll leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. How many perfectly good trades have you killed, and how many hidden losses have you kept alive simply because you are following rules built for a room you don't even stand in? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. See you next time.
OTSUllu. Knowledge is one of the best investments you can make, and continuous learning keeps you sharp. Subscribe to OTSUllu on YouTube.